Hi, we will now demonstrate how to set up the size exclusion chromatography column. So first thing you want to do is to remove the column from the racks and insert them onto the racks. And while you do this, you want to make sure to handle it carefully so that you don't disturb the beads. After the columns are properly set up on the racks, you want now to connect the tubings of the column. So on the bottom, you want to connect the outlet of the column to the fraction collector directly for the column on the right, or if it's on the column on the left, you have to connect it through the UV monitor, which is that little black box that you're seeing on the screen right now. So go ahead and just get the tubing and screw in it gently. And afterwards, we're gonna, making sure that there is a waste beaker, we're gonna open up the cap on the top and also open the stopcock at the bottom so that the waste would just start slowly dripped out. At the same time, you'll get a disposable pipetter to pipette out all the additional buffers that's on top of the beads. So you want to remove the buffers until it's to the level of the beads, and you want to make sure to not disturb any of the beads from your pipetting. And then you will repeat this for both columns. So as you can see from the protocol, once the top of the beads appear dry, you can go ahead and stop the stopcock until you are ready to load the samples. Now that you see that the buffer and the gel bed appears dry, you are now ready to load the samples. So making sure that the stopcock is open when you load the samples so that they can leak through, go ahead and load the samples onto each column. Make sure to do it with a disposable transfer pipette and slowly draw up a sample from your 1.5 milliliter cuvette tube. And make sure when you add it, you want to add it slowly using the method that Dr. Beeson talked about, where the head of the beaker is swirling slowly around the glass. And you'll go ahead and repeat this for the other sample as well. Now that the sample is loaded, you have to wait for it to seep into the beads. So one thing that you could do while you wait for your sample to seep into the beads is to go ahead and set up the pump and purge the lines, which we will demonstrate next. What you see in front of you now is the echo pumps and the UV monitor, and then make sure to set up the settings accordingly to the protocol. And so now what we'll show you is purging the lines. So what you want to do is to have a beaker with around 200 milliliter of SEC buffer. That will be sufficient. And to make sure, put the tubings inside of it. Right now we're putting the beaker on top of the UV monitor, but when you're doing the lab, it should probably be in the bucket behind the monitor. And so whenever you are ready, screw the caps onto the tubing and put it in the beaker with full of SEC buffer. Once you are ready to purge the air out of the lines, you can put in the caps and press the purge button, which is demonstrated by the fast running man button. Once it has finished purging, you can see it's finished whenever there's no more bubbles. Go ahead and press the fast running man button once more, and that will stop the purging. Back at the columns, now that your samples has already seeped through the beads, you will now add from 0.5 to 1 ml of the SEC buffer as a chaser to wash the samples into the bed. And you want to apply the chasers the same method you apply the samples. After you do this with both columns, you will now wait for the chasers to go into the beads similarly as the samples had before. Now that the chaser has entered the column, you need to layer a fresh buffer to a height of 3 to 5 centimeters above the bed. And then make sure to add the buffer in the same manner as you had before. Likewise, you will repeat for both columns, and afterwards you're going to attach the cap to the top. But make sure to not cap very tightly. After you're done adding the layer of the buffer, you can now, and after you have capped it, you can now start the pump. But before you start the pump, make sure you have set up the fraction collectors on the bottom beforehand. Make sure to have all your 30 to 40 tubes ready, and then you have set up the time to be whatever you calculate it to be. And then make sure to, before you run, to open the stopcock. And to run, simply press the slow running man on the pump. And now you just wait until the process is finished. And then make sure to also press the slow running man on the fraction collectors. And that is all.